Please welcome Nicolas Weber from MetaGameHub DAO. He will be speaking on MetaFi. You can guess what that is. That is the convergence of decentralized finance and the Metaverse. Where is he, by the way? Nicolas. Oh, you're remote. I'm sorry. Welcome. It's nice to have you.
Yes, greetings from Bogota, Colombia. I was here for DEF CON and staying here a little bit. So, but yeah, pleasure to be here. Awesome. Cool. Then, yeah, I will jump right into it. Probably my face is looking at many familiar faces. So hello to everyone. We also have a booth here, so you can definitely check it out. Yusuf, my colleague, is there. So definitely feel free to reach out to him. And yeah, as correctly stated, today my presentation will be about MetaFi and also the need for decentralization within the metaverse. So I'll start sharing my screen. I hope it can be seen. Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, right, with MetaGameHub DAO, we are basically a hub, a home base for the metaverse, or you can even call us a one-stop shop, right, for the metaverse. And our goal is really to push adoption, right, not just by building another world, but actually by supporting along the entire life cycle of the user metaverse journey, whether it's B2B or B2C, right? From the identity layer toward the respective investing and building infrastructure, as well as the experience, right? But yeah, let's jump right into the topic at hand. What is the current status today of the metaverse, right? I think the metaverse is something that has been overly used as a term over the past couple of now years even. I mean, the term has been around for a long time actually. And just to bring everyone on the same page, right? To me, what is really happening right now is the Web3 layer and the immersive layer of the metaverse, right? In a way, all the virtual engagements, whether it's from the social side, the business side, or whatever else, right, is already in a way a metaverse, but it is a 2D metaverse without the tangibility of value, right, which is provided, so to say, by the quote unquote Web3 layer, just so everyone is on the same page. And I would also not call each virtual world itself maybe a metaverse, but more a world, right, which is focusing on gamified experiences. In general, right, the metaverse can be seen as a convergence of different areas, from the social layer, the gamified experience side, as well as the crypto industry as a whole, which includes, of course, aspects such as data, finance, healthcare, and all the other industries, right? And when it comes to the current status quo, really, we're currently still at that layer one, if you wish, which is a term we often use in the space, right, where it's all about the infrastructure, right? So, and that's why you see also a lot of these reports about, yes, there's only X amount of users in this world and Y amount of users in that world, but that's okay, right? We're so early. If we see the metaverse as the grand vision of the, let's say, evolution of where we're headed with how we engage with the internet, then we still have billions of users, so to say, if you wish, in the metaverse, but only in the Web2 metaverse. And the challenge will be transitioning them toward the Web3 metaverse, which will happen through, applications, which is, so to say, the next step of really where the adoption will come from the metaverse experiences, right? Because these applications are crucial to onboard the users into the space intuitively, right? So that they're not overwhelmed with a vast array of deserts or let's say use cases that it can be overwhelming, right? And then around these applications that are based on the infrastructure, we will have these different communities that establish themselves, right? So just to bring everyone back to speed on that side, generally MetaFi can be defined as, so to say, the decentralized financial layer of the metaverse, right? I would say there's no competition between the term DeFi and MetaFi. It's more like DeFi is the all-encompassing world, and MetaFi is specifically focusing on these metaverse-based assets that see the metaverse as that economic system, right? And eventually, so to say, you once we have all these engagements within the metaverse taking place, maybe even the term MetaFi will not be that relevant anymore, because it will just be natural to call it just DeFi, right? Everything. But right now, I think it's a good term to kind of differentiate the standard DeFi applications from the major DeFi protocols like Aave, MakerDAO, and so on, from, let's say, more gamified metaverse-based applications. So, for instance, what I find very interesting, or an interesting example, is actually that we are working on together with Hamza, the head of DeFi at Polygon, is actually a DeFi metaverse, for instance, where instead of going to the 2D interface of a DeFi protocol, you walk into a virtual gamified environment where you have, for instance, bots assisting you throughout the process of obtaining, let's say, a loan. And that's then something that eventually, you know, once it becomes accessible, right, and scaled, even mainstream can use, right, because it's kind of a similar experience as to going to a bank and not being, again, overwhelmed by a complex interface of a DeFi protocol, right? And eventually that will then also push forward kind of that financial inclusion layer that DeFi itself, right, is promising, but so far is not really that much happening, because right now DeFi is very much dictated by whales, crypto OGs, as well as institutions that are entering the space, right? But once we make DeFi more accessible through these metaverse interfaces, that's when we will reach kind of that proper adoption. And in general, MetaFi has different areas of centralized and decentralized ecosystems, right? So there's on the one hand kind of metaverse-based applications of finance, such as what I just described with, you know, the virtual world that you walk into, you engage there instead of the standard interface of a DeFi protocol with the DeFi protocol through the metaverse interface, if you wish, right, in an immersive environment. You have games that you play, right, that have some DeFi layers associated to it. You have access tokens that basically grant you access to certain experiences and maybe even benefits that can be even been packed to aspects such as reputation and past experiences and engagement with these DeFi protocols. You have assets such as variables, avatars, right, that are sold on marketplaces and that can then also respectively, of course, be leveraged in DeFi protocols, as, for instance, collateral, right? And here, for instance, from our side, for those that don't know, we at MetaGameHub DAO also develop appraisals for NFTs, right? AI-based valuation, so to say, which then, of course, further financialize NFTs as a means of collateral, for instance, in DeFi and for more transparency on marketplaces, right? So just kind of generally fostering that transparency around the NFTs. And I think what's crucial here is that currently, if we generally look into the omnipresent environment of the metaverse and DeFi, there are kind of these, there's kind of this play between some centralized players, right, that are entering the space, that are offering services. We've had it now also with all the kind of CDFI trends, but I think that stopped a little bit now with Celsius, right? But still, you know, there's some players in the industry that are striving for decentralization, and I just want to also use today's talk a bit more to dive a bit deeper into that topic, right? I know decentralization has been talked a lot, but I feel like especially in the past kind of hype cycle, right? It was more about IP and brands entering the space than so much about decentralization, which is a core pillar of this decentralized metaverse and financial infrastructure that we are building in this space, right? So the question generally is, will we ever reach decentralization? Because as said here, right, we have different pillars of centralized and decentralized infrastructure layers and assets in this ecosystem, right? And how will that play out, right? Will there ever be decentralization in the space or not, right? The answer is not that easy, right? It's kind of a yes and no answer, so it's a bit complicated because you know, there is, of course, the strive for decentralized infrastructure and protocols from the layers of the different virtual worlds. So, for instance, Decentraland is doing a great job on that level, right, with being as decentralized as possible. Then you have other ecosystems and worlds such as Sandbox, which are currently a bit more centralized, but at least have a path, a journey of decentralization, right? And at the same time, from the DeFi side, right? I mean, there's DeFi protocols that are more adopted, more sustained. Typically the large DeFi protocols are a bit more decentralized than, let's say, up and coming applications in the space that tend to be more centralized, right? So in general, there's always going to be kind of this back and forth between centralized applications and decentralized applications, and that's okay, right? Actually, in my personal point of view, that's also a part of decentralization, because at the end of the day, it's all about creating that equal access, right, to these financial layers, to this financial infrastructure, pushing that financial inclusion, where you can choose, hey, do I want to, you know, engage with the centralized application or this decentralized application, right? And often the decision will not come from that question though, right? Whether it's decentralized or centralized, but more, okay, what are the benefits, right? And that's, I think, also something that so far has been wrong when dealing with this topic, where it's always about, yes, it has to be decentralized. Oh no, this is decentralized, so it's more efficient. But the highlight of the benefits of what that are associated to these different infrastructures for the users that are engaging, for instance, throughout the metaverse economy with centralized and decentralized assets and ecosystems, right? So let's take an example. For instance, right now, as a developer, you have more flexibility in Decentraland, which is a decentralized ecosystem, right? So that's a benefit here. Then, so maybe more developer-focused people will go into Decentraland and build the applications and the financial infrastructure there. Whereas on the other hand, someone that is more looking for easy user onboarding right now would more head toward the sandbox, right? Because here, anyone with a game maker can create an asset instantly, right? That will come for Decentraland, and actually that's something that we are also working on, because we have the DCL Edit, which is the go-to building infrastructure for Decentraland, and we are working also on a plug and play, let's say, a project will allow that easy building. But right now, status quo is that it's not possible yet, really, right? So kind of that aspect also shows kind of that interplay between these two aspects, right? So yes, someone that's looking for an instant ease of use will maybe go right now more to the centralized application in the metaverse, and vice versa, right? So that's kind of generally how it is, and eventually it's all about providing that access to and that choice, right, for users and organizations in that space. Why is decentralization relevant within the metaverse, right? I mean, with MetaFi being a part of decentralized finance, I mean, I think it's quite obvious, right? So we want to push for creating a decentralized ecosystem that provides that equal access, right? And if we think about it also from the perspective of, okay, like we already have centralized web infrastructure, and we know what's happening with, for instance, our data in that ecosystem. Now imagine we are going to spend even more time in these ecosystems in the internet, with the metaverse being, so to say, the embodiment of that next step of our journey, so to say. Then of course there's going to be an increased value also around the data, for instance, right? I often like to highlight that data aspect, and therefore it's so crucial that we have decentralized infrastructure and make it though also accessible, right? From that perspective, plus also from the financial inclusion that of generally the decentralized financial ecosystem can provide, right? But at the same time, of course, also keeping in mind the recent MiCA regulations, we always want to stay compliant on that side, because decentralization is always, or not always, but sometimes associated with some gray areas. So it is a balance that needs to be kept there, of course. And I know there's some guys that are definitely experts on that topic in the crowd. Another aspect that I would like to highlight there is basically in general, right, that access is embodied in different layers, right? Again, right, I like to use that layered approach because I think it's quite coherent, and everyone in the space understands it, right? So right now, right, we are all what we should focus on is kind of the decentralized infrastructure and education layer, right? So building decentralized protocols, building decentralized infrastructure for the metaverses, and also from the financial side, as well as actually having unbiased and, let's say, democratized education, if you wish. Shout out at that side to our partners at Ecolance. I know that they're also there. We're teaming up with some education material there with them and programs. So I think that's a key part, right, for everyone to have kind of that base layer of entering the space, right, and engaging with the right applications, and then having access also to the right opportunities, which is, so to say, the second step, right? So once we have that educational layer in place and you have the infrastructure, you can then engage with the different applications and thus leverage also the respective opportunities. And around that, we will have the organizations, the communities form, right? So kind of that's the path or the journey of decentralization, right? Right now, the infrastructure and education are those that we should target the most. Then we move more toward applications and opportunities, while then we will have more decentralized communities and organizations. But I mean, keep in mind that this is like several years, right? This process, and again, there will never be 100% decentralization in that sense, and specifically for the metaverse infrastructure and the financial layers. So the current status of decentralization in the metaverse is obviously complicated, right? As I discussed before, with different players having different approaches, right? But again, I think that's okay at the current stage that we are, and that's why it's so important that we highlight the infrastructure and education aspect, so everyone can at least make their own journey and empower, so to say, quote unquote, themselves to find the right direction for themselves in the space. Now, wrapping up the presentation, I just want to kind of highlight one aspect that is something that addresses us all, I think, that are serious about building in Web3 and actually not just making a quick buck or building a Web 2.5 application, but properly actually going into Web3 the right way, right? We all, I think, have work to do, because given like what we've seen in the recent hype cycle, right, it was all about branding, big names, IP entering the space. The core values of the space have been left alone a bit, I feel like. So I just want to highlight that we all can do more to educate. We can all do more to onboard people to the space the right way, right? Not necessarily directly always saying to them, hey, look, this is your exchange at whatever exchange. I'm not going to mention one, right? And that's it, right? But actually also showing them non-custodial solutions, accessing these different ecosystems. Yes, it takes time. Yes, there is friction and the UI UX is not the best, but still, I think it is our duty, so to say, to kind of engage with people the right way and also build the right applications that focus into that direction. Plus, the last thing is also use, right? So decentralized applications currently seem to have the worst UI UX in the space, but still those that are interested should not, let's say, step away from trying them out at least, right? So I think these are some of the responsibilities that we all have if you really want to make a change with this industry that we're building here. And our role, just quickly at the end with MetaGameHub DAO, is, as I said in the beginning, being that hub, right, that connects the infrastructure, the applications to create that interoperable ecosystem for B2B and B2C users, right, where we support from the entire journey, from identity, where we have an avatar module, right, that is Metaverse interoperable. And we are currently testing with some partners in the sports industry from the investing and building side, where we on the one hand have analytical tools based on AI for NFT appraisals, right? And then we do on-chain data provision for DeFi, integrations into marketplaces like Parcel, as well as Sandbox, as well as working, with asset managers, for instance, that leverage our data for portfolio appraisal and management. And from the building part, we have DCL Edit, right, which is the go-to scene editor for Decentraland. We received a grant from the Decentraland Foundation, so we work very closely with the core team there. We have, it was used by 16 of 20 teams in the recent game jam, and in January, around 80 to 90% of builders there use it. And we also have a game design and development team that then focuses on the experiences, right? So on one hand, you have the scene building, where each scene is also kind of an asset, right, that can be used in the DeFi ecosystem. And then the second step is the experiences around, because building a scene is one thing, right? But that's like having, like, I don't know, maybe a website without text, right? It's static and there's not much you can do with it. You need kind of that engagement, which is bots as avatars, so you imagine a chatbot as an avatar in the metaverse, mini games, quests, events, and all these different experiences, right? So, and that's our focus. And sadly, I can't be there with you guys in present, but you can definitely reach out to my colleague Youssef and also Manuel and everyone else there, and let us know if you're interested in collaborating. So thanks so much, guys. Looking forward to being with you in person again at the next edition, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nicolas. I hope you can hear the applause.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sadly, we don't have time for questions, but I wish you a very nice evening, and we wish that you could have been here with us as well. Now,
next time I will. Appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.
Great. Good night.